listeners. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Intermission. It's a conversation series between artists. Intermission is the Hawaii Chamber Music Festival's exclusive online channel with Broadcast Hawaii. I'm your host, Chris Yick, the founder of the festival, and today we have special guest, Mr. Robert McDuffie. And for those of you who don't know, Mr. McDuffie is a dear mentor of mine. I just actually graduated from his own school, the Robert McDuffie Center for Strings, and he was the first artist for our festival, so I thought it would be very symbolic for our conversation series to feature him first. So yeah, aloha, Mr. McDuffie. How are you doing?
And how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. I'm good. I think I'm not in Hawaii right now, but I'm still hopeful. I'm still excited about all things music related. Where are you located right now?
I'm in my home in New York. Can you see my son in the background when he was 8 years old? So I've been relegated to my bedroom down the hall. I have two adult children here teleworking. My son's working right now for ABC News. My daughter's a lawyer. My wife's working at Columbia University. So they've thrown me back here in the bedroom. So I got my violin right there, my music stand. I got my iPad. I just, right before seeing you, I was conjugating Italian verbs. So, you got to keep busy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I guess the basic question is, like, have you been dealing with this COVID-19? I think you're very used to just being on the road, whether that's coming back to the school and, going to other concerts, other engagements. Have you sort of, in a way, found more time to take a step back, reevaluate things, or do you really miss the crazy hectic schedule of flying every other day and playing violin concerts?
I do miss it. I'd be lying if I told you I didn't miss it. On the other hand, I feel fortunate that I have a nice place in which to live, a good family. We get on each other's nerves, but we're very loyal to each other. And I'm practicing every day, about 2 to 3 hours, solely on the Brahms Violin Concerto. I never played it well. I played it really, I was pretty mediocre in my 20s, and I was so frustrated, I just put it on the shelf. And I have a lot of dates with this piece for next season. So I'm really grateful for the time to really spend time with it, to do the Thomas English muffin approach, study every nook and cranny, just embracing it. So I'm really grateful for that. The first 7 or 8 weeks, this is now week 10 of our quarantine here. First 7 or 8 weeks went by really beautifully, quickly, this great rhythm, practicing in the morning, doing Italian with my teacher in Italy every day, just conjugating, having a great time, but also teaching. I was doing virtual lessons. School was still in session. I listened to juries, I listened to recitals, I taught privately, and so the days went by very quickly. Now that school is out, I don't have those, so I'm really, I'd like to start just giving extra lessons to everybody in the school, just to keep my mind going. A little frustrated that, that it hasn't, like everybody else, that it hasn't passed, and that we know it eventually will. My goal is to get down to Florida, where we have a place, and start practicing and playing golf.
Yeah, definitely.
But I got to get there. So I'm okay. We're very fortunate. So I really should be complaining.
Well, you're also in New York. How is the city, now? I'm sure I've heard it's very quiet, definitely less people. But is there sort of a different vibe? Is everyone just panicking around you, or do you think, life is just normal and you're just trying to cope with everything? Or
life is not normal. People are not panicking. It's just quiet. You go out and it's like a early Sunday morning in Manhattan. Every day is like an early Sunday morning. No traffic. It is surreal. Definitely surreal. We occasionally go out and do curbside pickup at restaurants that are still open. It's different. A lot of folks in my building here have left to the Hamptons or
Hmm.
a fancy schmancy place. I'm just a violin player, so I don't have to know where.
I mean, uh, like because of COVID so far, would you say that like is this something the music profession was like ready, or do you think like this is like in some ways a new experience for musicians to really find different ways that like or even uses of different technology for our profession? Like, do you think this is a good time for us to really explore those and um, I guess as musicians be more accessible through different platforms rather than the traditional concert hall setting and you know ticket sales, etc.
Well, well, we have to make do with what with what we have right now. There are virtual performances out there. For instance, at my chamber music festival, we both have something in common. We both are founders of chamber music festivals. My festival in Italy, we're putting together a movement of the Beethoven septet, um, and we're using the third movement, which is the easiest to put together. You just need a click track, and
Hmm.
you can kind of get it done. But still, even with that, it's tough making music. I have given a few virtual solo performances. One recently for the Orlando Philharmonic. I just played for the donors at the Met Museum just a couple of days ago. That was good to make some music and hopefully make some people happy. But it's not good. We were dealt a tough hand, we musicians, with this. It will be the last to get together, to get back to uh, a sense of normalcy. I just think first of all we need to artistically we just need to keep ourselves keep ourselves inspired, and luckily I've got the Brahms concerto to inspire me, but practicing every day doesn't pay the rent.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
um, yeah, so I mean it's going to be it really is going to be tough financially for artists, and my hope is that we just get through it with as few bruises as possible. And I do think we need to have a come to Jesus moment uh, as musicians, to see as we go forward how our music is played and heard. I think that's maybe this COVID um, is going to speed that up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you think in some ways COVID is making people realize, how important music and arts really is? Because, with all these cancellations, no foreseeable concerts in the future for now. I've even heard that like some organizations are completely just writing off 2020 to 2021. They just think maybe it's just not worth it this season. Like, do you think people will now realize and appreciate arts and music, or just all things entertainment?
I think some will. I think those who don't look at us as essential will continue to feel that way. Um, I mean, we just need to keep staying true to who we are, and uh, as messengers of great art. And yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I heard Carnegie Hall is selling every other seat for next
Mhm.
season. I mean, people are trying to adjust. Um, but I mean, I think live music. I think there'll be the institutions and the artists that survive uh, will will have a beautiful resurgence, because there will be
Absolutely.
this pent up desire for live music.
Yeah, that sounds. I have the same feeling as well. Let's shift gears a little bit. I mean, obviously, you've given your insight of how you've been dealing COVID as a performer and a violinist, but as you mentioned earlier, as founder of the Rome Chamber Music Festival and the McDuffie Center for Strings, how has COVID affected the institution, like how, from the administrative standpoint?
Well, the festival is a little easier to manage. I mean, we've got it's just a 10-day experience, and we have a board of directors, and we decided just to put it off until the following year. In a way, financially, it helped. We were able to build up our resources. We're not going to have to keep, asking for money for 2021. We've already raised the money, so we're in good shape. The school is a different
Great.
and I must say again, I'm grateful that we're part of a university that is so healthy and caring, and they make decisions that are way above my pay grade. So, as you know, Mercer is a very solid university.
Absolutely.
Mercer. People ask me, what's your relationship like with the university? As you know, since you were part of it for 4 years, we're a conservatory with our own DNA, right, and our own rhythm. But we're also part of a larger university. So people have asked me, so what is that like, your relationship with the university, since you have your own, your own mission? The university is our protector, as you know well. I
definitely.
sleep at night because I know the larger university is making decisions that protect its students, including the Center for Strings students. So I'm really thankful for that. I know they're looking at, they've already invested in this technology to do testing, antibody testing, and also COVID testing. They've already bought the machine that'll be doing this testing, and they're coming up with ways to keep everybody safe. They're going to want bodies on campus. I trust this university. This is where, it's good to have a central authority figure that knows what it's doing.
Yeah, I think even sort of this past semester, even though things didn't finish ideally, I think for the most part, Mercer did a very good job of that transition period of just going online and really ironing things out. And I think for those of us who graduated, we definitely did not expect this coming, but it was definitely a great time being at the center last 4 years. So, I mean, with COVID too, is there any like projects or any like crazy ideas you've been having to sort of just like, I feel like this is a good time for people to brainstorm. I mean, this interview series, for example, was something that I thought of to keep my festival relevant. Do you have any sort of breakthroughs or any like new ideas that you want to share with?
I wouldn't say brand spanking new ideas. I mean, I mentioned the performance of the movement of the Beethoven Septet. Obviously, others have done that. There's that fabulous Rotterdam Philharmonic performance. The Met Opera just put on their gala. I just thought that was remarkable, what they did, how they just found musicians all around the globe and put together this stunning concert that was so natural and human and just really beautiful. So we'll follow that model at the R.E.M Festival. I was just invited by Robert Lipsett, the violin professor at Colburn, to speak to his studio and ex-students and future students. And it was kind of a Q&A, not unlike what we're doing here.
Sure.
That was really nice. I'd like to do that for the center. I would like to identify one of my colleagues to come on Zoom and invite the whole center, present students, past, future, whatever. just have a good experience where I'm asking questions and open it up to the students as well. That's something I'd like to do. So nothing new, but I just want to do something that's helpful and relevant.
Yeah, I think people in our position, what I've noticed is like, I think artists now are sort of realizing, there is this sort of sense of control that they want to have, but most importantly, I think they're finally sort of seeing that as musicians, we play a huge role in our communities and in our profession, and essentially our art is our voice. So I think, yeah, that all sounds great, and then if you have that for the center, I would definitely be there. And let's sort of reevaluate things before COVID. I mean, obviously, I think a topic for arts organizations, institutions, even just performances, it's how to make classical music financially stable. And I think that has sort of been a question that no one can really answer clearly for the last God knows how many years. But now with COVID, I think people are exploring new ideas. Is there any do you have an opinion on how you think classical music should be how it can be financially stable?
Hmm. Well, that's a tough question. It's a very generalized question as well, and there's so many factors in our country that depend so much on private philanthropy. There is a gilded age now. We're living in another gilded age, the age of tech. Those guys, the Bill Gates of the world, will look to global health issues before they look to cultural issues. I mean,
Yeah.
These are all good intentions. Bill Gates wants to invest in mosquito nets. I mean, that's huge. It's a huge
Definitely.
deal. We don't have the Carnegies and the Fricks and the Vanderbilts that we had back at the turn of the 20th century that not only supported artists, but they built concert halls and things like that. So we don't have that. We still depend on philanthropists here in this country, but it's becoming more tenuous. The Met Opera, for example, depend on private philanthropy. There are about 4 or 5 rich women who keep the Met Opera above water financially. That, to me, is not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
That is not sustainable. My simple answer, and this is really simplistic, but I would just look at what the Vienna Philharmonic has done. That's a cultural institution run by and governed by its musicians.
Okay.
Musicians are determining how their music is played and heard. They determine who their conductor is. They determine the repertoire. They determine who their soloist is going to be. I think when your livelihood is on the line, you'll make the right decisions, not only for yourselves but for your world.
Mm-hmm.
So I would, my king for a day wish is that all cultural institutions, musical institutions, are run by the musicians who make the music.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I don't know if that's going to happen in my lifetime. I don't even know if it's ever going to happen. But that would be my king for a day wish. I think musicians need to be more empowered in the decision making process.
So you mentioned all this advancement of technology. Do you think in some ways our profession can be enhanced with technology, whether that's through more accessibility, or do you think that sort of takes away from the authenticity of what we try to do with our craft?
No, I think no. We need to, whatever works, we utilize. I mean, the recording business is a perfect example. We need to orchestras are making their own recordings, and they're doing
Mm-hmm.
beautiful work, and they're live streaming concerts. And when I was growing up, when I was at Juilliard, I couldn't go to a movie theater and watch the Ring cycle. I couldn't see so amazing things are being done with technology. So everything from distance learning to to live streaming, all of that. We just need to utilize what works best and what helps us get our music out there.
And also with technology, actually, I think you've been doing a lot of that for the center, right? I mean, I know in my 4 years there, it definitely went from 0 to 60, and I think now we have those big TV screens with the big cameras. Do you want to sort of tell people what you plan to do with that kind of stuff at your school?
Yeah, we've it's taken a little while, but we're doing it right. As you know, we have the fiber optic cables under
Mm-hmm.
our building, under the conservatory. and we have the software, the Internet 2 technology, where we can connect to conservatories and music institutions around the world in real time, high def, just fantastic quality. And we'll have that kick in the fall. Sorry, it's the year after you graduate, but at least
No worries.
We're getting it done. Probably our first relationship will be with the New World Symphony in Miami. They're the ones who helped us get started.
Awesome.
As you know, a couple of faculty members live in New York, and we'll connect with most likely Hunter College here, who has they have Internet 2 available. So if I can't get down to Georgia one week, I'll just hook up on Internet 2 and give a master class or something. So we'll have that access. Yes, we're ready to go. And you got to tip your cap to Pinka Zuckerman, who thought about this before anybody did. He Manhattan School, where you're going, made a huge investment in this kind of technology.
Really?
And that was because of Mr. Zuckerman, who saw it before anybody else did.
Awesome. So for those of you guys who don't know, the McDuffie Center for Strings is, as we mentioned earlier, part of Mercer University. There's about 23 to 27 string players at any given time, and it's a very competitive school because each student admitted is offered a full tuition scholarship for their time there. But what I think is very interesting is that Mr. McDuffie is going to implement is there's a very niche or a very new degree that he's going to put together. And it's not your traditional Bachelor of Music and Performance. It's not your traditional Bachelor of Arts and Music with, humanities. Mr. McDuffie, do you want to sort of spill a little bit on this new degree program that you've been putting together?
Right. This took about 12 years to put together. I mean, when you try to change a paradigm in a university, sometimes it feels like a lifetime.
Sure.
So we got this done, and it was just implemented this year. We do have a new degree that we are requiring all students to take. It's called a Bachelor of Music with electives in business. The electives are not electives, they are requirements. It's basically a hybrid music, liberal arts, and business. The courses that are required to take outside of music are management, accounting, obviously math is important. Professional branding, entrepreneurship, nonprofit, contract law, and dispute resolution. So all these courses being taught mainly by business school faculty, but obviously some of the law faculty as well. To prepare the talented conservatory student for the real world once they graduate, and they will have they'll be a step ahead because they will have had this knowledge. It's not just not just a seminar, but a real coursework, real study, real homework to prepare the entrepreneurial musician. As I said earlier, I don't know how it's going to shake out, but the world seems to be shifting towards a self-governing world, musicians running the show. And I just think an educated musician will be able to make the right decisions for our own world. So it's long overdue, and we were able to do it at Mercer because we're so intimate. We only have 26 students.
Definitely.
So so it's still a Bachelor of Music degree, but we've added on the business requirements.
Do you think, I guess this is going to be kind of a mixed bag question, but I've had a lot of friends and colleagues, even, classmates that are doubtful even continuing pursuing music, whether that's through university or just mastering their craft because of the pandemic. Because I think it's exposed a lot of issues that we've had to deal with. Are there any like words of encouragement or advice you can offer to students or young aspiring artists? Is music even like worth pursuing anymore, kind of thing, or should they, or should they look into other things or just teach?
Well, I think the 21st century musician will be doing so many things besides just playing music. Teaching music obviously is part
Hmm.
of it. I've become a better musician because I'm teaching. I think if you feel that's your calling, and if you don't pursue the avenues out there, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. I mean, if you really think that's your calling, and if you are talented, and if you have people who believe in you, and especially if you're at a level where you're accepted into the center or at
Hmm.
Juilliard or into these brand name conservatories, I do think you need to see it through. That's just my general. Obviously, there are exceptions,
Sure.
but if you put in that kind of work since you were 6 years old, you should definitely see it through. That's my see yourself through um, the conservatory phase of it, and then see what's out there.
Hmm.
But I mean, I've been preaching this even before the pandemic. I mean, so many of us feel this way, but you can't you can't depend on others
Sure.
for your own economic and artistic happiness. It's all
Absolutely.
you. It's you, and to the extent that you can have help from others who are out there. I mean, as you know, we're not only your mentors, we're your de facto managers. I mean, we get on the phone for you, call people for you. I mean, that's important. The 21st century musician is a totally different animal than than uh, than what I was when I was coming out of school.
Sure. Okay, and actually, let's talk about sort of your journey in music so far. I think this is gonna sound hilarious to some people, but I think in some ways, Honolulu is very similar to Macon, in the sense that like Honolulu is a very isolated small town, and my exposure to music was in the sixth grade with bass because the teacher didn't want me to play cello because she said I wouldn't make it if I tried to do cello. But things worked out in a small town for me. So I guess, but this was just only a few years ago when there's so much access to technology, so much more accessibility to social media where you can just email a professor, demonstrate your interest. But it was definitely different during your time. So how take me through that whole journey, I guess, from when you touched the violin till now.
Well, I had a mother who made me practice. She's still around. I mean, you know her. She's kind of the grand dame of music in Macon.
Uh-huh.
She saw that I was talented as a little boy. We had a Hungarian refugee living in Macon at the time,
Hmm.
and I studied with him for 10 years. Um, so I had a great teacher, and I had a mother who made me practice. It could have happened in Macon, or it could have happened in New York. I mean, I was grateful for the environment I had. I played the varsity basketball team. I played golf. The whole thing. I had a pretty normal childhood, um, but yeah, but they did feel I needed to go to New York when I was 16, not because it was New York, but because it had Juilliard there. So I
Hmm.
went. I left Macon when I was 16. I think. I mean, you hear about a lot of. I mean, isn't Josh Bell from Bloomington, Indiana? I mean, he's not from the big city. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's really about the environment that you're in, your support network, and your own and your own passion.
Did you have like a moment in your childhood or your musical journey where, you were kind of still iffy, maybe choosing between basketball and violin, that you sort of have, that one moment, that inspirational moment, or maybe you went to a concert where you just told yourself like, this is what I want to do, I want to be a violinist. Did you have any of that, or was it
Yeah,
just sort of this?
yeah. I was pretty good. I've been playing violin for 8 years. I was 14 years old, and Itzhak Perlman came to Macon and played a recital, and it changed my life. It's just as simple as that. It just changed my life. I never heard the violin played that way. I'd never experienced that joy of music making that he had. He was doing things on the violin that were just crazy, just crazy. And I knew how hard that was, but it was so easy for him, and that changed my life. Yes, it happened when I was 14, and I told him I did stop playing basketball because of that. I left the team and I just dedicated myself to practice the violin. I told him that. He said, you know, you would have made a lot more money playing basketball. And of course, he likes to joke.
Sure. You know, actually, another interesting thing I've also noticed in the music profession is relationships and how many, you know, it's sort of, you find like a family on the stage, but you also find sort of a new family off the stage outside your own personal life. I remember for me, sort of realizing that is when Mr. Kim was introduced as center faculty, and he went on to tell the story of how like you guys would just, you know, be at Juilliard together, or you guys cross paths at Aspen, and obviously the center is a big reflection of your relationship, your work, your artistry. So are there any fulfilling or really important relationships you have built through this course of music?
Oh
Or
yeah,
like,
and you're seeing it now with your festival. So many relationships were built at chamber music festivals, like yours. Back when I was starting out, I mean, I went to Santa Fe, Seattle, Vancouver annually. Those were my three, and some others. There were some other chamber festivals as well. I think Bravo, and of course Aspen every year. But I was
sure.
going to these chamber festivals. But when you're at a chamber festival and you're spending so many hours a day with the same people, eating 3 meals a day and going out and jogging with them, and you know, maybe going out and playing a round of golf and going back to rehearse, just having great conversations and maybe drinking too much one night, or you know, just those are where so many of my relationships became really profound. And it happened at chamber festivals because we were all, you know, committed to making great music, but we were spending so much time with each other as well. And so many of my relationships were formed that are still important to this day, were formed at festivals like yours.
Oh, well, I hope I build a lot of relationships then in the next few years. You know, for me, what I've noticed is like, you know, when you have a talented group of people, they obviously play together well, they can make music together, but when there's sort of another dimension to the relationship off the stage, from what I've noticed, the music becomes even more inspiring. It becomes even easier to perform because you sort of share a different connection with these individuals. Do you feel the same with when you're making music with, you know, friends or center students or just people who are close to your heart, sort of thing?
I think it's different. I mean, sometimes you have that magic experience where you have people in the group. It's just a magical group, and then you may have someone in the group who is who's not on the same page, who's kind of an outlier, maybe a disruptor. I have been that person in the past. I'll be the first to say I'm not proud of it, but you know, soloists have these egos that are just crazy, and I certainly had one when I came out of the gate. But chamber music, I think, made me a better person and certainly a better musician. But yeah, when you have that magical combination, I mean, there's really, that's it. And you'll ask any serious conservatory student, what part of the conservatory do you love the most? Almost all will say chamber music.
Yeah.
That's one thing I think we've achieved at the center between Annie Fillard and Lawrence Dutton. You know, our groups are so fabulous, and that seems to be, you know, the most you know, the most important news of the year. Who's in which group is playing, what are they playing, and who's coaching. Yeah, so what you're doing is good. What you're doing is really good, not only for your public, but just for your fellow musicians.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I agree. Adding on to the complementary factors of the chamber music program at the center, I think Annie and Mr. Dunn have done incredible things, especially including basses. So I have to be really grateful for that. Let's talk about the relationship outside of classical music. I remember my freshman year, you know, we hit the gates running on Labor Day Festival. We did a big recording project with R.E.M. bassist Mike Mills, and at the time I was like, wow, this is definitely very unique to have a rock concerto recorded with a string orchestra while also playing Glass Symphony Number 3. Do you think that special relationship is sort of like the inspiration or the creation behind the project? Like let's talk about that Mills concerto.
Right. I mean, that was just perfect timing. The folks at Philip Glass Inc.
Uh huh.
Because the recording was produced by Mr. Glass's recording by his company,
Yeah.
um, his own label, and and it was their idea to record the Third Symphony, which is a string symphony,
Yeah.
with the students. It was a real vote of confidence, for what we achieved.
Hmm.
Um, and the timing was great. It was around the time that Mike Mills had finished this concerto for violin and rock band um, and string orchestra, and it was just perfect timing. And I'm glad you were part of it because it was we had such a good time. We're still selling a lot of those CDs, and
Yeah.
that was a really sweet project. We've had a few of those during your time. We just had
Hmm.
another rock and roll tour. I think your senior year. We went around to
Sure.
several in the South.
Yeah.
Um, we performed at nightclubs in New York City together. I think you played in Carnegie Hall. I mean, you've just done several
Sure.
things.
Yeah. It's definitely been a very memorable 4 years. I guess the last thing regarding music is you mentioned a lot earlier Brahms Violin Concerto, how you didn't, when you were 20, you kind of just, it was too hard, so you put it to the side. Um, do you, and obviously right now with COVID, you're sort of building up the chops to just conquer the piece, really, really go for it. Is there any performances in the future, or is this sort of like the very big thing for you, like the next kind of thing, the next few concerts? Like, what is
Yeah,
your
I mean,
inspiration for
um,
this?
right. I had the chops for it, but I didn't have the maturity for it. I think I
Okay.
just or I didn't. I don't know. I just didn't. I didn't invest the kind of time that it required. And yes, 2 years ago, when you book concerts in advance, sometimes it's a year and a half to 2 years in advance
Sure.
before.
Yeah.
So I had a great talk with my manager saying, look, I'm still playing well. I may be 100 years old, but I'm still playing. Um, I want to play Brahms. I want to perform Brahms. I want to be able. It's not necessarily checking the box. It's just something that I needed to do
Hmm.
for my own soul. And so yes, I mean I have I think about 20 performances lined up of Brahms
Oh,
concerto,
wow.
and it's supposed to begin this fall in
Uh-huh.
Armenia. So I have no idea if we're going to go there, but I have several orchestras lined up. Atlanta Symphony next season,
Hmm.
a tour with a Lithuanian orchestra just to get it under my belt. I've got
Sure.
Aspen Musical. We're talking about presenting it there. Um, so yes, I'll be playing it. I'll be playing it a lot, and um, it's just I have. I think I have. That's. It's not that music is not difficult for me. It's not.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, if I put the work in, I'll do a good job. That's basically. But I've got the time to put that work in, and I'm learning every day.
Great. So I guess the last question I kind of want you to answer is, you through this long musical journey and career you've had, not only have had a very successful performance career, you've also done things outside the box of creating your own music school, creating your own center for strings, and you have a chamber music festival as well. Do you think, or how do you think you want your legacy, like the picture to be painted for your legacy at the end of
Uh,
the career?
the school. Legacy, at first, I don't like the word legacy, but it's the school. The school is the most important thing musically I've ever done. Hands down. It's just on so many levels, because it's been, it's just been so rewarding for me to see you guys flourish, and when you flourish, I grow as well. And just teaching is I never really taught before on a regular basis. I gave a bunch of master classes, but teaching makes you better. So while it's been, an amazing ride as a fiddle player, hands down, the school is what I'm, most proud of.
Is there any teasers you want to give of any final expansion plans, or is the school? Are you happy with everything, or is sort of?
Yeah, we're finally again. I remember when I left Juilliard, two things happened when I wasn't there. They built dorms. So I never stayed in a Juilliard dorm when I was there, and I never went to Europe with the orchestra. The year I left, the Juilliard orchestra went to Europe, and just, so we're gonna we will be announcing the addition of winds and brass to help out the strings in the next few months. So.
Awesome.
Excited about that.
Well, Mr. McDuffie, I feel this has been very great. I've definitely gotten a lot of information from you, and it's been a great conversation, and I hope our listeners and viewers will feel the same. For those of you tuning in, I hope you guys subscribe to Broadcast Hawaii, and hopefully you listen to more episodes of Intermission, because we'll be having more artists in addition to Mr. McDuffie. Thank you again for checking with us, and Mr. McDuffie, any last words? Or?
No, keep it up and keep practicing.
Definitely, will do. I'll see you in New York, I guess.
Okay, Chris, can't wait. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Take care.